If we don't know each other, my name is Christopher Parsons. I'm the founder and CEO at Knowledge Architecture. We're a technology company based here in San Francisco, started in 2009. And today we're going to talk about the future of synthesis. We've been really hard at work on a lot of new technology that are in various forms of beta, private betas or public betas are coming. And I just wanted to step back and look at the whole landscape holistically with you and let you know where the product is today and where it's going. And I actually want to start, just for context, by going backwards a tiny bit to where we got started. So our roots are as a social intranet platform for AEC firms. Again, we got started in 2009. And for the first 15 years of the business, that's what we were doing. We were taking these social mechanics that had been happening outside of firms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and brought them internally to make knowledge sharing more democratic, more community-based. And this was a pretty big change at the time. And we built that out and kind of matured the platform over 15 years. And so it started with building communities. We added content libraries for standards and policies and best practices. Over time, we added in guides. So taking 100-page PDFs and making those nice and interactive and dynamic on the website. We added in searchable video, which is a huge part of the synthesis platform now, employee and project directories, internal communications, that's where I mentioned we got our start, analytics, and then enterprise search. So there's obviously a lot more to synthesis intranet than this, but at a high level, we were just adding capabilities over that time frame. And at the same time, we were also very focused on integrations. So we started with Deltek and expanded over that time to Uninet, AEC 360, Microsoft Dynamics on the ERP and CRM front, added Open Asset and Newforma and Zendesk. We added an integration last year with Revit called Synthesis for Revit that lets you access synthesis directly within a Revit add-in. We also added our synthesis data connector, which allows you to pull data from synthesis into data warehouses, analytics platforms, other applications. So at a very high level, that's 15 years and about 90 seconds of what we've been doing with synthesis. And so what I want to do for the rest of this presentation is talk about where we're going next. And to do that, I need to go back to the spring of 2023. So many of you that are part of our community know that synthesis went through a massive rebuild from kind of 2019 to 2023. And we basically tore the platform down to its studs and built it brand new on a brand new cloud platform that was called Synthesis 6. That was a massive project. When that had finished, it was in public beta and had been moving along pretty smoothly. I ran a listening tour with 80 of our clients, one-on-one, over the course of a couple months in the spring of 23, basically asking, now that we've done this big thing, where should we go next? What's your biggest opportunity for us? What are your biggest concerns about your business? What are things that keep you up at night? Really wide-ranging kind of listening around how can we partner together to move knowledge forward at your firm? And the things that we heard were easily boiled down really into two big buckets. One was AI. So this is, again, the spring of 2023. ChatGPT had just had its moment in the fall of 2022. And folks were like, look, I know this is going to be helpful for our company. We don't know exactly how, but seems like synthesis plus AI would be a really cool thing. So that was kind of bucket one. Bucket two was learning and development. Either companies had LMSs and for learning management systems, and for whatever reason, they didn't love them, or they didn't have any technology. But also they kind of were starting to get like, well, why is our learning content separate from our intranet and our knowledge base? Shouldn't those be closer together? And so after a couple months of that, we realized that we were going to need a bigger boat. We were going to have to dramatically expand the surface area of synthesis to capture this new opportunity, which was to bring knowledge, learning, and AI together into one integrated platform for AEC firms. So that's the big journey that we committed to in 2024 and have been on ever since. And so that started with, on the LMS side, with us adding courses and a course catalog, building in learning paths to let you put multiple courses together in one path and assign those, and a universal transcript. So the first beta of the LMS went out last summer, in the summer of 25. We now have over 80 firms in the Synthesis LMS public beta, and it is now open to the whole community to get into Synthesis LMS and start building. At the same time, at the end of 2024, we introduced AI search, and we've done multiple rounds of improvement ever since then to let you search across all the content on the intranet, in the LMS, through those integrations all in one place. So This is the current state of what's publicly available to the whole community now, right? You can see that it's become much more than just an intranet over the last few years. So then the question is, well, what's next? So I'm going to take you through 6 things that we are in various states of progress of adding to the platform. And I'm going to start with our Search Connector API. So this allows you to bring more of that high quality firm-wide knowledge into Synthesis. And we started getting a lot of these questions as soon as we turned on AI search, because people were like, oh, well, I have this source. I have this source. I'd love to be able to search that in AI search. This is so amazing. And so this is the diagram that kind of represents how that has been for us, right? We hear these questions, and this is a very typical distribution graph where you've got a fat head of products, the very few number of products that are super popular. And those are the things that we will build native integrations into Synthesis for. And then there's this long tail of things that 4 firms use, or 3 firms use, or 2, or even 1 firm uses. And there's no way we could keep up with building all the integrations for all of those systems in the long tail. So when people ask, can Synthesis search Freshworks, which is a help center software, or Help Scout, which is another one? Or can you search Gitbook, which has some of our documentation in it? Or can you search our website on either WordPress or Squarespace because we've got a blog series there we really want to bring in? Or some other custom system? Now our answer is yes, right? Because we have built these custom search connectors. So your team will take advantage of our API and be able to build custom search connectors to bring data from those systems into Synthesis. So as an example, in our demo environment, some of you might have heard of the Smarter by Design newsletter and podcasts that we produce. We built custom search connectors that go out to our website, and they index all the newsletter issues and then all the transcripts for all the podcasts out on our website, which means that within Synthesis, I can ask a question like, what are Synthesis knowledge agents? And it can cite that external content brought in via the Search Connector API directly in Synthesis. So what's it good for? In version 1, it was highly optimized for text-based systems. So as I showed you, help centers and documentation platforms, internal knowledge bases, websites, blogs, and newsletter. Basically, it's any system with a title. It's got body text and a URL. It's highly optimized for indexing that kind of content. And it's also content that's appropriate for everyone in the firm to see, right? These documents are considered public knowledge. So what it's not designed for in version 1 is a way to index all of your network drives and cloud file storage, to integrate with video, images, and documents. It's not a workaround to get into a different CRM or ERP that we don't currently integrate with, and it doesn't have any permissioning capability. So lots of people are finding really good use cases for what it's doing now. We're obviously taking feedback to continue to think about evolving the Search Connector API over time. So that product is publicly available now. So if you're a customer and client of Synthesis and you have something you've been wanting to connect and you've got the team and the ability to do it, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com and we will get you into the beta. It's been in a private beta for several months and it's now available to everybody. So that is us adding the Search Connector API into the end of the integrations path. And these paths are going to continue into the future. I'm just showing you the next few stops. Okay, so Synthesis knowledge agents. We have been talking about this quite a bit over the last 3 months. And these allow you to take all of that hard-won knowledge that you've put in Synthesis and put that knowledge to work through agents. I did a webinar in June that was a full hour, a little hour plus, deep dive into knowledge agents. So I am not going to repeat that here. Susan's going to put a link to that webinar in the chat so that you've got it and you can watch it later. But I'm going to do, just for those of you that aren't aware, just a 5-minute high-level flyover of Synthesis knowledge agents. So if you haven't heard of them or know what they are, you have a general sense. To do that, I want to just start by pulling back and say, when we talk about agents, what are we talking about? Because this is one of those terms that's used very heavily right now, sometimes with a lot of confidence, without a lot of precision. And I think a lot of people are talking past each other because that word agent can mean multiple things to different people. So I tried to build a spectrum that can give us some kind of shared taxonomy on how we can think about agents. So for us, at the level 1, foundational level of agents, is they're informational, right? They can retrieve knowledge and answer questions, and they're grounded in a subset of your firm's knowledge. So as an example, and I'm going to go through some of the examples that I showed in the webinar, right? You can build a Revit assistant that's grounded just in your firm's Revit standards, posts tagged with hashtag Revit. It could be your courses. in your LMS that are Revit related, whatever it is that you want to add, you can say only search this content, right? And so that allows you to build a very, very concise use case driven form of search. Or you could build a sustainability advisor. Again, same idea, right? You ground it in your sustainability best practices, training, what good looks like at your firm. And this allows anybody in the company to go get kind of 101 or 201 level answers without disrupting your experts. And this is one of the great benefits of agents, right? Is they can take some of those repeated questions off of people's plate while at the same time giving 24/7 access to that knowledge to your employees. And then the harder questions end up making it back to the subject matter experts or things that need you to sit down and sketch something out. But there's a lot of basic questions that an agent can certainly answer on their behalf. This could be used for things like exploring design precedents. You could do the same thing with HR policies. You could ground that in your firm handbook, et cetera, and like people can go self-service and get answers there. You can even use it for seasonal use cases like open enrollment. So you just ground it in your open enrollment information. You can see here that we've added some sample questions and people can just go to town even at night or on the weekends when they're working with their partner and figuring out what their open enrollment options are. This gives 24/7 access to that information. You can even use it to kind of audit the quality of your intranet, right? And make sure that it's doing what it should be doing. Lastly, I built one internally for Smarter by Design. So that search connector I showed you in the search connector API example around the newsletter and the podcast that we created, I just grounded this agent in those two connectors. And now I can have conversational knowledge with just that content, just the issues and the podcast episodes. So that's level one. Level two is creation-based. So this allows you to draft, summarize, generate new content using your firm's knowledge, standards, and institutional voice. So for example, a brand communication that's grounded in your brand voice to help you draft LinkedIn posts or project profile summaries or whatever it is that you need to write. Or a healthcare proposal assistant that's maybe grounded in the project directory, and you can filter these, right? So it could be just grounded in healthcare projects in the project directory. It could be grounded in project cut sheets or different boilerplate language. And then it can give instructions to help write approach narratives in the firm's approach style, right? Or how we write project descriptions. And so you'll see that if you watch the webinar, we go kind of deep into how this works. Or it can be used for L&D. And so we see firms in our community, I'm going to take this video, help me create learning objectives to create a course on this video, or help me think about ways to break this course down into individual shorter lessons, or write a detailed course outline. You've got a lot of different applications of what you can do once you add that knowledge into an agent. So that's the creation-based level. The last one I'm going to go into any detail on is process-based. So that's executing structured, repeatable knowledge work by review something or compare something or check something or to complete a process, again, using your firm's standards and best practices. So one of the examples I've shown quite a bit is the fee proposal review assistant. This comes directly from one of our clients who went ahead and they defined a fee proposal review checklist, right? Which allows them to then upload a draft fee proposal, have the agent compare that against what good looks like, right? That fee proposal checklist, and then generate a table of things that need their attention. Right? So this is something their practice manager had been doing manually and had a little bit of a checklist of his own. But when he built the agent, he kind of really dialed up that documentation of what best practices look like. And now more junior people in the practice can run draft fee proposals through this agent, get feedback, improve it. And so when it comes to his desk, it's 90% of the way there or 95% of the way there. And then he can handle the edge cases, right? So it's great for his productivity, but it also empowers people to take on this kind of work earlier in their career. And the same thing for reviewing contracts, reviewing NDAs. We've had people, I had the content quality assistant in the wrong place. This is where it actually belongs. And so if you define what a good page looks like on your intranet, right, you can then run new pages against it and make sure, hey, it's starting with Y. It's saying like, hey, we actually take acronyms and we spell them out for people that don't know what it is. And we have just this style of writing, clear, concise, whatever it is. Or you can use it to check content for contradicting information on the intranet, or check for missing information in a directory. So these agents are really good at running some of these standard processes. So the knowledge agents that we have out now today are really designed to be level 1 through 3 knowledge agents. But from there, we acknowledge that there's more to do. The next step on this capability spectrum would be semi-autonomous. And the semi-autonomous means an agent can do work, but it can't actually write a post or create a page or take an action without human approval for that execution first. So that's a human in the loop type agent. That's level 4 in semi-autonomous. Level 5 is autonomous. Like we have built trust and confidence. There are some specifically defined tasks that have very clear boundaries, and it can just run and it can just do things automatically. An example of that might be if you define posts need certain hashtags applied automatically. This could be used to automatically apply hashtags to posts as they're written. And then last is then you get multi-agent kind of orchestration, and they work together to accomplish more complex goals against systems. So as I mentioned, we're focused on levels 1 through 3 currently. We are listening very intently and looking at ways that we might move up that capability spectrum, but there's obviously plenty to do with what we're working on right now. Okay, so that's synthesis knowledge agents. They're going to go into public beta in Q4 of 2026. We've been in private beta since April. We have some pretty big changes that are coming out later this month, early next month, to the way that knowledge agents work. And so we're holding up bringing more people into the beta until we make those changes, validate that everything's working correctly, and then we're going to start opening it up in Q4. So if you want to be part of this journey into the public beta of synthesis knowledge agents, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com. Okay, I've got one more. We've added knowledge agents to the AI journey here. The next thing I want to show you is Synthesis MCP Server. So this allows you to take your AI platform of choice and connect it to your firm's knowledge and learning foundation in synthesis. So, for example, your firm might be using Claude or OpenAI or Copilot. So this allows you to pull information from synthesis into Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever that AI platform of choice is. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. If you haven't heard of it, basically it's a standardized, an emerging standardized format for exchanging data between AI platforms. So it's kind of like an API for AI. So what this means is you'll also be able to reach into synthesis and connect to any of the systems that synthesis is already connected to, right? So I showed you the Search Connector API. We've got those native integrations with the Deltex and the Uninets and the AEC 360s. So this allows you to add all that data to those AI platforms as well. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop my presentation and now we're going to go. So the next 4 items all have a live demo component. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and I'm going to pull up Claude. Great. So I'm in Claude. Doesn't have to be Claude, but this is the tool that we've standardized on. And so I have connected synthesis into Claude. So now I can do things like ask synthesis what Revit plugins we use. So it's going to figure out where to go for information. You can see that it's found synthesis. So now it's searching synthesis. And there we go. So for within Claude, it's searched the synthesis knowledge base. You can see these are the plugins that we're using. And then it provides me a link that I can go and jump out to that page that underlies that. Let's do another one. I'll do voice this time. Ask synthesis, what higher ed projects have we worked on in Massachusetts, which are over 200,000 square feet? So this data in our environment is housed in Deltek. It's mapped into synthesis through the native integration, available in the project directory. And so now the MCP server is going to query synthesis to pull the answer to this question together. So it found that we have 2 projects. We've got the Harvard University Life Sciences Center and the MIT Tower. And again, I can click through that and go directly to that project profile in synthesis. So I'm going to show you a few more examples. So in this example, I asked synthesis for a definition of synthesis knowledge agents, as well as benefits, common use cases, advice, etc. And so you can see that it did, when it did that, it talked to me about what knowledge agents are. It told me about some of the key benefits, some common use cases. It even pulled some implementation advice. And its source is a newsletter issue from our website that was put into synthesis via the Search Connector API that we showed you before. Pretty cool. In this example, I asked synthesis to write a detailed project update about the Dropbox project that our company is working on and cite sources. So I get a snapshot, design, construction, etc. And you can see that it's pulling sources from a town hall video, a post that was written, a project profile, and then a cut sheet that's on our intranet about the Dropbox project. So those are some examples of doing searches that you would do. You can do all of what I just showed you in synthesis already, but sometimes firms are standardizing on a place that people want to be able to connect to a bunch of different systems and have one place to go to search. So it's helpful there. And now you can start using it for things that we can't do in synthesis or can't do yet. So as an example, I asked it to find the promotion process information on our intranet and then make a flowchart out of it, right? And because it's now Claude, I can go nuts formatting this, making it exactly the kind of diagram that we want to make it. Or in this example, I said, I'm trying to visualize how many employees we have with licenses in each state. Can you please make an interactive map using data from synthesis? So I see we have 13 in Washington, 6 in Oregon, 13 in California, 1 in Missouri, 8 in Illinois, et cetera. So again, able to take that data that's in synthesis, and again, this is data that's coming from either a Uninet or a Deltek or whatever, and use it directly within Claude. Same kind of idea here. I asked for a project square footage breakdown of our projects over the last 3 years, well, over 22 to 24, because that's where our projects are in our demo environment. So it was able to do that. But then I was like, that's okay. That didn't really do anything for me. Is there something better I should have asked about that, right? And so it's actually telling me the real stories in the sector mix and kind of trends within our sector mix, not the square footage. And then it got me some other insights that are happening. And I said, that's great. How would you think about visualizing that? How can I make that tell a story? And so it came back to me with make this a little bit bigger, came back to me with an infographic, right? So again, it's using that data from synthesis, but then you can just take it and run with it and make things like this pretty easily using a tool like Claude. Okay. Couple more, or one more. So in this example, and I like this one a lot because part of the power of MCP is you're connecting data from multiple sources together that were never connected together in the first place. So as an example, I've connected the Microsoft 365 connector to Claude, meaning I can search Teams. And as we know, I've got the Synthesis MCP server connected. So in this query, I said, can you look at the Teams conversations about Revit over the last week and compare them against our Revit standards guide on synthesis to see if there are any knowledge gaps we could fill in our standards to help users self-service answers to their questions in the future, right? And so that's what it did. It went through and it looked at all those Teams conversations, looked at our knowledge base and identified gaps in our knowledge base. And then it went ahead and suggested additions in a priority order. Cool. I said, let's go. Let's get started with the levels and grids policy, which it did. And it wrote me a draft update to our existing documentation. Cool. And then I realized I forgot to tell it to use the writing style guidelines from our intranet. Can you redraft that using our writing style? And then it redrafted that. And then it asked if it wanted to go ahead to the next one. So you can see in these examples, searching synthesis directly, taking synthesis data and doing additional data visualization or analysis with it, and then combining synthesis data with other sources all in one place within a platform like Claude. So that's really at the heart of what we're doing on the MCP front. I'm going to stop sharing that demo for a second so I can go back to my slides. So what I hope you take away from this is the way I've been thinking about it, and I want to share with you that I'm thinking it this way, is that synthesis then now becomes your system of record for firm-wide knowledge and learning, right? This is where the best stuff lives. The standards, the policies, the best practices, the distilled evergreen content. This is how we do the work here, right? This is what good looks like. This is the firm way. But then there's stuff happening outside of synthesis that's in flight, right? Conversations between folks, drafts of things getting made. And so this allows you to take your system of record for firm-wide knowledge and learning and use that with more unstructured or fluid data. So this is pretty exciting, we think. And it's going to go into public beta next month in September of 2026. So if you're interested in being part of the public beta, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com and we will get you on the list. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about kind of pulling back on the AI of it all with synthesis. So we started our journey with AI search, right? Which is and I haven't demoed that on this call. I'm assuming that most people have seen it. If not, our team would be happy to show you. But broad search bar that search across everything on the internet. It's a broad entry point. It's great for general discovery. There's no reason to think about where you need to go or what agent to work with. It's a great discovery tool. On the knowledge agent side, we're kind of purpose-built, grounded in a specific subset of the knowledge. You can follow detailed instructions. It's got a lot more capability for doing work than AI search does, and it's kind of optimized around specific use cases. And then the MCP server allows you to take your knowledge and learning from synthesis and bring that into your AI platform of choice. So it's not one of these things, it's all of these things combined that we think is going to create a really good AI ecosystem for your firms. So that's where we've been on the AI leg of this journey and where we're kind of going next. And there, I'm going to pop out for a quick Q&A break just to see if anything has shown up that I should address now before I move into the learning management stuff. I've got a question about how is this synthesis MCP server deployed? Is it a Microsoft 365 connector or something else? So it is a web MCP server. So there's instructions on adding it that we're passing along to people that are going into the private beta. It's pretty easy to add into Copilot agents, and you just use OAuth to authenticate with it there. So if there's more questions, Chris, that you have on that, feel free to email us and we'll follow up. Is Synthesis MCP available to Claude Code, not just chat? Yes. And then for Caitlin, for the MCP server to be effective, does our firm need to be advanced in clean data and knowledge recording? We're in the messy before clean phase right now with no clear timeline to achieving anything resembling organized knowledge management. Thank you for your transparency on that. I mean, the answer is it depends. I mean, AI is not going to fix it for you. There could be, and I would wager that in most firms that would say this about themselves, there are probably pockets where the data or the knowledge is in really good shape, and there are other pockets, let's just call it needs improvement. And I think so far as you're tackling specific use cases, and this could be with knowledge agents or with the MCP server, like you just have to know what knowledge is high quality. What we have found again and again over the last 2 years in our AI journey, and we've heard from this community, is that the AI tools provide this kind of forcing function for firms to improve their knowledge, right? Because on one hand, it's kind of embarrassing when the answers are wrong, but more on the positive side, as leaders start understanding use cases that this unlocks for them, it just changes the math in terms of how they're thinking about capturing knowledge. Because now it means like, I can automate this process. People can get answers immediately. They start to understand that return on effort is getting higher and higher. And so just the kind of the ROI of capturing that knowledge in the first place is going up, which means firms are doing it more and more. So that effect has been really, really powerful to see. Okay, I'm going to move on here. I will say that I will stick around. We're going to end officially at noon Pacific, but I'll stick around and answer all the questions that people have afterwards if we keep going. Okay, next is assignments. We're going to go into the LMS, and I'm going to jump right into the new release, which is coming out soon, called Assignments, Recommendations, and Notifications. And these are email notifications, just to clarify that. So this allows you to deliver the right learning to the right people at the right time. And this is one of the challenges that we heard going back to that listening tour in 2023. It's like it's kind of like air traffic control, right? We have all these courses and learning opportunities, and we have these learners that are in different phases of their career with us or their life cycle with us. And how do we match the right opportunity to the right person at the right time? And how do we keep the people in the loop that need to know that it's all going on? That was a deep challenge and is still a deep challenge for a lot of firms. And this release of the LMS is really aimed at going after that. So I'm going to go ahead and do a demo. So I'm in Synthesis. I'm going to go head over to our Learning Center. And I'm going to go to the course catalog. And we have a course in our course catalog called Project Initiation. And I want to assign that. So I'm going to go ahead and click Assign. And so the first thing you'll see is that there's 3 types of assignments: basic assignments, smart assignments, and global assignments. So basic assignment, it's like I manually pick a couple people or more to assign it to. Smart assignments let me use those filters in the employee directory. And again, that's using data that we pull over from connected systems like Deltek, Uninet, AEC 360, as well as custom employee fields that are added in Synthesis to use as filters. Or global assignments will be added for everybody in the firm. I'm going to pick a smart assignment. And because this is project initiation, I'm going to assign this to our job captains and to our project managers. So again, title is a field in the employee directory, but you can see that I've got much more that I could use to drive, these smart assignments. This is fine for me here. I'm going to click Next. And then you'll see I get a choice to either create this as a one-off assignment, meaning those 11 project managers and job captains, it'll just be assigned to them once. Or I can make it an ongoing assignment. So it'll be assigned to those 11 job captains and project managers, but then to new job captains and project managers in the future. So new people that meet that smart filter criteria will automatically get those assignments. I'm going to stick with a one-off assignment. I'm going to pick a due date. 30 days is fine. And I'm going to go ahead and assign it. Okay, so when this happens, it will notify the user that they have a new assignment. They'll get an email notification they have a new assignment. It will also show up in their dashboard. So you can see it showing up in my dashboard. It will move into overdue assignments once it's overdue, right? So the learner's also going to get your course is due in 3-day notification, it's overdue 7 days, and it's overdue 30 days. The global administrators of Synthesis, the Learning Center administrators, the instructors for that course, the facilitators for that course, and the learning path managers and the assigner, they have the option to get those notifications as well. So we deliberately, with notifications, in fact, have kind of narrowed down the number of notifications that are on by default, but you can always turn on more if you want them. Okay, so I'm going to go into the assignments, and you can see that I've got a tab for my assignments. So I can see any assignments that are assigned to me, so I can keep track of it there. But then as an administrator, I also get admin mode. So I can see all the assignments that are assigned to everybody in the company. So if I go look at that project initiation course, you can see those assignments that I just made. And this assignments, this is new for Synthesis LMS, this tab. There's a bunch of new things that we're adding in. This is one of the big ones. This lets you, again, as that air traffic controller, understand what's going on across the whole organization, like what's overdue, what's not started. You can filter by user, you can filter by assigner, you can filter by status, all the things. So super powerful there. You can also assign learning paths. So I mentioned in the intro that learning paths contain multiple courses. So you can see that I've set up project management fundamentals, which has things like project communication, project execution, project initiation, financial management, and so on. So this allows me to set up this path and assign those courses over time. And so if you're in the Synthesis LMS beta, you know that you have been creating this default assignment schedule when you've been creating learning paths. And this allows you to drip these assignments out over time so that people don't get them all at once. Well, now that you have the assignments released, this is where that comes into play. So from that learning path or from the assignments tab, I can click assign, and I've got the same tools here for assigning the course, basic, smart, global, that I had for assigning courses. So I'm going to go ahead and do a basic assignment this time, and I'm going to assign it to Brianne. And you see that default assignment schedule that I just showed you that was configured for the learning path. I can override that here. If I want to give her more time or less time or change the order or whatever it is, I can override that on an assignment by assignment basis, but it is drawing from that default. And so I'm going to go ahead and assign that. It will then show up on Brianne's dashboard. She'll get a notification that it's been assigned, and she can get to work on her first course in the learning path. All right, there we go. Okay, what else? So recommendations. So I want to recommend a course to an employee. So this is different than an assignment in that it's non-binding. So one thing that we heard in our discovery and we continue to hear is, look, AEC firms are matrixed organizations. People move around between projects. And it could be that a project manager or a teammate or someone that's working on a project with you says like, hey, we have a really good course there. I recommend that you take it. And so that's what recommendations are. So I just click recommend. I'm going to go ahead and recommend this to Jessica. And it's that easy. I can just add people. Anyone can recommend a course to anybody. Once I do that, it shows up in her dashboard, and she also gets a notification that I recommended that course to her. From there, she can take the course, she can ignore it, she can remove it off of her dashboard, but it's just a nice way within platform to basically say like, hey, I meant to tell you about this course, or this is something I think you should take, and it's there via recommendations. Okay, one more thing I want to show you on this release, and that's the addition we've made to analytics. So now in analytics, you have a new activity tab. Actually, let me go back. So the transcript tab gives you very high level completed course information. It's a transcript, right? You can just see where, and you can filter by user, you can filter by course at a very high level what got done. The activity analytics give you much more deep granularity. So you've got graphs that you can drill down on a bunch of different metrics on. You've got all kinds of activity types that are logged. So every time someone views a lesson or a course or viewed specific content or started the course or completed a lesson or on and on and on, right? We're logging all that activity in platform and then we're making it available to you here on the activity tab. So for example, I know that M just completed a Revit Basics course. So I can just drill in, filter on M and that course, and I can go replay the way that she completed that course, including getting you what percentage of the videos that she watched. So as people in the LMS knows, we don't do a lot of kind of policing up front to make sure that people are doing things exactly the right way, but we have all of this data on the back end. So if you're concerned that M completed the course that was supposed to take 2 hours in 15 minutes, you've got this data behind you to back it up and understand what's going on. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about with the 0.8 release. I'm going to go back to my presentation. So assignments, recommendations, and notifications are coming into private beta at the end of next week. If this is interesting to you, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com. Okay, so that's adding assignments and recommendations. The next thing we're adding to Synthesis LMS is SCORM courses. So this is in an aim to allow you to centralize access to your firm's learning ecosystem in one place. And so SCORM, if you don't know what it stands for, is Shareable Content Object Reference Model. And the reason this, much like it's an open standard, right, for exchanging learning content between platforms. And that's usually taken advantage of in one of two ways. One is you purchase content from a learning partner. This could be harassment or cybersecurity or some other compliance. This could be technology training or project management training or whatever the thing is. And somebody outside of your company has authored it and they publish it in this SCORM format, SCORM package, so that it's easy to add into your learning management system. So that's reason one. Reason two is there are instructional designers in our community that use tools like Articulate to create SCORM courses, and that's what they're comfortable with. These tools are kind of like Word or PowerPoint, but for learning and development. And so it exports to the SCORM format. They're comfortable or authoring courses in that tool that allows them to work in that platform and then publish to Synthesis. So this is a companion to Synthesis native courses. So like anything in life, there are benefits and limitations to this. One, on the benefit side, is that they complement the native courses. You get one place to access and assign learning. So as a learner, they have one place to go, whether it was created by the company or not, and you have one place to assign that. It all gets tracked in that universal transcript that I just showed you. So this lets you partner with external learning providers as well as support your preferred authoring tools. On the other hand, SCORM courses are kind of like a black box. And so they have very limited searchability and AI integration. And so with the native course, you can search all of the content in the lessons, deep into the videos, documents, all of the kind of content associated there. SCORM, it's way more limited, right? We can search kind of the course name and the description and any metadata that you add. It does provide an inconsistent UI UX. So if people are used to the native courses, when you buy or build a course using another platform, they're just going to be laid out differently, and that's not good or bad. It's just different. So I just showed you the activity analytics before. We just have less reach into the level of detail of activity analytics for a SCORM course that we have for a native course. And you can't just link someone straight to a lesson and have them take that, right? You can just link them at the course level, not the lesson level. So pros and cons, I think there are going to be times when it makes sense to use SCORM and times when it doesn't. But I want to show you a working demo of how that works. Okay, so I'm going to go into the course catalog. And I happen to have an existing SCORM course built here. This was from our friends at PSMJ. And this is a course on managing project quality and risk. And so I'm going to just start the course. And you can see that it pops up. It's kind of like an embedded course right within the platform. And you see immediately what I mean. It's a different UI UX. This is the platform that they use. So I'll start the course and I can start moving my way through the course as a learner, go on to the next video, etc. So if I decide to exit the course before finishing it, that's fine. I've got the status tracked, and so they can just come in and resume exactly where they left off. So much like a native course, I can either assign or recommend a SCORM course within Synthesis. If I go into activity, I said we don't log everything, but we do log some things. So you can see that I viewed the course managing project quality and risk as well as started it. And if I go to the transcript, I'll just go to my transcript. You can see that it's in progress for me. So for those of you that are into this SCORM world, we log SCORM scores if they're configured in the course. And we can also honor the idea of a passing score in order to pass the course or force a retake if people don't pass it. I mentioned limited searchability, but you can. If I search on Manage Project, you will see that that course does show up in search suggestions or will show up in source. It's just, I showed you at the very end in that SCORM course, there was a video. We just can't search the content inside of SCORM courses in the way that we can with native courses. So that's kind of the high level of taking a SCORM course within Synthesis. I want to also show you adding one. So I'm going to click Add a SCORM course. And now I upload the SCORM package. So this is how it's delivered to you from your learning provider or how it's exported from your creation tool of choice. So from Globally Training, I happen to have new for Revit 2026. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that. And we go through a little verification step first to make sure the package looks okay. Okay, it's done. So I'm going to click Next. It pulled the title New for Revit 2026. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and upload some cover art for this course. And I just happen to have one hanging out right there. And then I'm also going to add in a course description. I'll keep it just short for our demo purposes. And I'm going to add a course duration. So this course takes 2 hours. Great. So everything I just said about search and limited searchability with SCORM is true. However, we did put a workaround to try and help people take advantage of the power of AI search, of knowledge agents, of MCP, that if you have a searchable transcript for this course, this is especially good for if you've developed it in-house and you probably had a script or some kind of transcript you used to generate the course, you can upload a PDF or a Word doc, a markdown file of that transcript, and Synthesis will attach that transcript to the course. And so you can search the content of the course, but only at the course level, right? It's still not going to take you directly deep into the video, but it's at least going to make some of the content that's available in this content searchable. If it's an externally provided course, you have options, including reaching out to them and asking for a transcript, etc. So I'm not going to add one for this, though. I'm going to configure the course visibility. I'm going to make this public for everybody. An instructor, we went ahead and created an external instructor for this one named Mike Thomas from Globally Training. This one doesn't have any continuing education credits, so I'm going to skip this step. And then it's a Revit course, and I'm just going to add it to our SCORM track and click Finish. Okay, and just like that, probably 30 seconds, I've created a new SCORM course in Synthesis. Now I can start the course. And you'll see, again, this has a different UI UX. So again, the thing I mentioned before, but here is the Revit Basics course from Globally Training directly inside of Synthesis. And it can be also, like I mentioned before, assigned and recommended. So that's it. That's the basics of adding a SCORM course to Synthesis. Okay, I've got one more thing to show you, and then we'll move on to Q&A. So SCORM courses are going into private beta at the end of next week. So same as with that release I just showed you with assignments, recommendations, and notifications. So if you want to be in a SCORM courses private beta, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com. Okay. So we've added assignments and recommendations, SCORM courses. We have one more thing to add on the LMS front, and this is the Synthesis Knowledge Marketplace. I'm just going to start this with a video that kind of shows what we're trying to do here. So we've looked at Synthesis native courses, which, as we've established, are fully searchable within platform, AI search, knowledge agents, MCP. We've talked about SCORM courses, which are brought in, which act just like native courses, assignments, recommendations, tracking, except for the searchability piece. The Knowledge Marketplace is looking to create a compromise between the two. So these would be external courses that you license through Synthesis and will be available in the course catalog like any other course, except they will be native courses within Synthesis. So they'll be fully searchable and able to use within the platform. So in addition to those being courses that you can offer and learning that you can assign, all that knowledge that's in those courses becomes searchable as well. So here's an example.
Can you fly that thing?
Not yet.
Operator.
Deputy pilot program for B-212 helicopter. Hurry. Let's go.
Okay, so is it going to be literally that? No. But the idea, I think, is illustrative because the idea is you're going to take external knowledge and plug it into your firm's brain, essentially, and then anybody can have access to search that. So it's a way to augment what your firm knows. So a Revit 101 course bought through the native marketplace, right, would let you, on one hand, have learners learn from it. You can assign it. You can add it to learning paths. It's linked directly. People can link directly to lessons within that. So if you only need to send somebody to a lesson about how to create a wall sweep, you can send them directly to that part of that marketplace course, like you would in a native course. And then, of course, it's tracked in the universal transcript. But it also becomes part of your knowledge and AI ecosystem. So you can search it with classic and AI search. You can use it with agents. It's accessible through MCP. You can use it to augment your firm's knowledge, right? And then surface that kind of knowledge in the flow of work for people. So where are we in this journey? We have entered the prototype stage and we've identified some prototype partners. Two of them I can tell you about. One is Nicholas Catelier. He's the founder of BIM Pure. They make some really great Revit training that we learned about through this community, actually, and reached out to Nick and have formed a relationship and a partnership. And so we're building a prototype of the marketplace with Nick and his content. Also, Corey Squire, who's the director of sustainability at Bora, well known in the K8 community. Has written a great book on sustainability, lectures frequently, all kinds of great credentials you can find on his LinkedIn page. Corey will also be offering courses to the Synthesis Knowledge Marketplace. And then we have additional partners who we can't announce yet, but we have begun working on development with to prove this out. So with that, I want to demo one of Nick's courses in the Synthesis Knowledge Marketplace. So I'm going to go back to the course catalog, and you can see here that I've got a course in the Marketplace section called Basics for Revit. So this is Nick's most popular course that he offers. And you can see that it looks just like a Synthesis native course because it essentially is one. And so
we'll find a PDF guide with the complete instructions.
We do all the transcription in the same way that we transcribe native videos. And as I kind of navigate through these lessons in this course, you can see that, we just brought Nick's content in. So,
or it can be system.
It's great. Like SCORM courses and native courses, these can be assigned and recommended as well. They can also be added into learning paths. They will show up in the transcript. So if I go into my transcript, you can see that I'm taking Basics for Revit and I'm in progress doing that. All of the content will show up in activity. So actually when I filtered before on M. Davison and Basics for Revit, this was that course. So you see that I've got all of that advanced analytics on her activity. It's available, that content coming from Marketplace courses is available through AI search. So if I search on Revit wall, it's recommending videos from that Marketplace course. Or if I do a query like, how do I create a reveal in Revit? So it initially found 2 examples, and now it's writing me an update, and you can see that it's citing one of those Basics for Revit courses. Again, that's that Marketplace course put to work in AI search. If I go to the agent catalog, these are available and can be added as grounding knowledge here as well. So if I go into grounding knowledge, you can see that I've added from the course catalog all the applications, all the courses with application equals Revit, and I did apply that tag to that Marketplace course. So then when I ask things like, how should I adjust the height of a wall in Revit? It's able to use our firm standards, right, in combination with any of those Marketplace courses. So in this example, you can see I'm getting citations from Marketplace course, but if there were things in our firm standards, it would recommend that as well. And then lastly, if I go back to Claude, I asked a question about creating a new layered wall type in Revit for a corridor that needs a fire rating. So ask Synthesis what's the actual process for building out the layers and getting the core boundaries set up right. And then also what's our convention for naming wall types, et cetera, et cetera. And so this goes through and it finds information. This one came from that course, right? The Basics for Revit video. So it's using knowledge contained in those Marketplace courses to inform its answer, but it's also using knowledge directly from the intranet side. So our general considerations and our model upkeep page to create this answer. So you're able to synthesize knowledge from inside and outside your firm, but it's trusted, vetted knowledge that you've acquired through the marketplace. Okay, so that's my quick demo of the marketplace and the big picture idea of where we're going there. I want to share a couple more things, and then we're going to move on to more Q&A. So next steps. So there's two pieces that we have to do next. One is building the product. This is, what does the marketplace experience feel like? How do we activate courses? And how does licensing actually work? How do publishers add courses to Synthesis? How the updates work? There's all that kind of technical stuff. I'm actually thinking that part isn't the hard part. The hard part, I think, is to be able to figure out how to build the business model, right? What's the pricing? How do licensing work and renewals work? What are the creator economics? How do we provide support on somebody else's, like all the things? And so I don't have all the answers to that question yet, but I will tell you the kind of guiding ethos that we have going into this project, which is we will create a win-win-win for our clients. So you guys will feel that these courses are creating value and they're at a valuable, reasonable price. They're creating value for creators, so they're getting paid for their work well. And then it creates value for knowledge architecture. And solving all three of those things, a win-win-win for clients, creators, and knowledge architecture, is how we make a marketplace sustainable. So that's the journey we're on. We're working with those partners. We're going to be starting to work with clients and talk through this in a lot of detail. And because of that, I don't have a timeline. We are actively working on this project, but we have to get through a lot of design work, kind of, again, both technical design, but then also business model design work. But if this sounds interesting to you and you think this would be useful for your firm, or you have creators to suggest that you would love to see us add in the marketplace or specific topics, please email us at support@knowledge-architecture.com. Okay, and I want to just pull back from the learning piece in the same way that I pulled back from the AI piece. You know, you've got native courses. That's going to be the stuff that you're going to build in-house because the way that you work is special. It's content that you can't buy. And then you have the opportunity to augment that with SCORM courses or marketplace courses to really optimize your learning ecosystem. So that's what I want to share with you all about the roadmap. I got us in under the wire, and then I'm just going to stick around for as many questions as people have. So thank you. All right, I'm going to pull up the Q&A panel. And good, we have a bunch. So somebody asked, for firms that have heavily invested in Microsoft 365 and Copilot, what content do your most successful clients intentionally keep in Synthesis as a system of record, and what content do they essentially live in Microsoft? I'll give a short answer to that. I think that's a longer discussion. Generally, like when firms decide to move to Synthesis, Synthesis becomes their system of record for this kind of information. We don't currently search, SharePoint or Teams or any of those kind of platforms within Synthesis, but this allows, if you're heavily invested in Copilot, because of Synthesis MCP server, this makes that Synthesis content available in Copilot. And I think this also answers your second question. Duplicate content between Synthesis and Microsoft 365 is like Synthesis becomes the go-to place for firm-wide knowledge and learning. And when you see content in Microsoft 365 or SharePoint, that's usually project-related content or project-specific content, not firm-wide content. Dustin asks, can LMS catalog items use private videos that are hosted on video on YouTube? And then someone added Vimeo and Stream. So the Synthesis video block can add videos from external providers. It's the same way that you would add a video to a page or a post today, Dustin. We can't search a private video host on YouTube or Vimeo and Stream, but it can be displayed within Synthesis. And we also don't have analytics on those. So we don't know watch percentage in Synthesis, but you can, if you found something useful in an external video, certainly use it as part of your course. People have been doing that already. Dustin asks, can LMS catalog courses be created from already existing pages or documents in Synthesis? Yes, I'll start with a simple answer and I'll do a more complicated answer. Yes, from pages. So you can move pages directly into an LMS course as a lesson. So there's a really straightforward mechanism for doing that. Documents, you would then insert the document into a lesson. If it was a library document, then you can just add it, directly into a lesson. Matthew asks, if a firm already has a strong Microsoft 365 environment, what's the strongest reason to adopt Synthesis? Susan, if you do me a favor and post our Synthesis and SharePoint comparison page on our website, That is a very long page, Matthew, that will kind of go through, all of those kind of pros and cons to both platforms in detail. I think that's a great jumping off point. Tyler asked, how close is the public beta of LMS to the real thing? If we join the beta, are any changes, updates minor at this point? Yeah, so our commitment to the LMS, like I just mentioned at the beginning of the call that we've been working on the internet for 15 years. We are in year 1 still of working on the LMS. So it is pretty substantial. We have clients that are live with the LMS now, that are offering courses, that are educating learners. So from that angle, it's very much the real thing. This last release I showed you today around assignments, recommendations, and notifications, that's really the kind of line for us that we're getting close to making this general availability and not calling it beta anymore. That really rounds out, that plus the SCORM thing, really round out kind of the big picture of what we thought version 1 should be. Now, there are going to be lots of iterations and improvements. Again, we're a year into this product, so the community is giving us lots of good ideas, lots of feedback. We tend to keep making it better and better, but at the root of your question, I think, is can we adopt it today? And the answer is absolutely yes. I'm going to go to Marco. Will we be able to recommend or set assignments at the lessons level? Not currently. So you are still making assignments at either the course or the learning path level, but we are tracking a feature request around that. But you can send, obviously, a link to lessons. Can we review analytics of completed courses by groups, whole teams? So currently, no, but that's something that we'll log and track as a feature request. Will LMS have permission levels for analytics, general analytics versus individual? That's a great question, Sylvia. So one of the things, I'm trying to think if I want to show or say this. I'm going to say it. If you're an instructor in the course, you have access to the assignments tab, but only for the courses that you're an instructor on, right? And likewise, you can see feedback and analytics, but just on your courses. Whereas a global administrator on the platform or a learning center administrator can see, analytics and assignments and that across the whole platform. So there are levels of permissions based on your roles in the LMS. That's not something that's added discretely. But the one permission level we did add as part of the LMS is the learning center administrator. And those people can do anything within the LMS. Are the assignment notification frequencies customizable from Kim? Currently not. It's a version 1, so we'll listen and see if they need to be. One of the mantras that we apply at KA is do the simple thing first. So we're starting with some pretty stock, reasonable, normal frequencies, and then we'll kind of go from there. But people can, at the instructor, facilitator, whatever, all those levels, decide which of those notifications they get. Learners are going to get the notifications regardless, but other folks can decide if they want to get those notifications and which ones they do want to get. Matthew's asking if recommendations can eventually be driven by knowledge agents or identified skill gaps rather than only by administrator assignments. And yeah, not today, but I like the word eventually. That's definitely one of the things that we're keeping an eye on is this opportunity to automate some of these recommendations on a variety of different levels. So no specific detail there, but if you've got ideas on what that might look like or some use cases, please send them in at support@knowledge-architecture.com. That's really helpful for us. I think this is I will give the same answer to the question about, there was something there and then there was a question there and disappeared. But basically, I think it was around like what people's skills are, like other things that would drive recommendations. It's the same thing. We don't have anything today, but it's something we'll consider in the future. Cody asked if there'll be support for XAPI course materials in the future. Maybe. We have yet to get a feature request for XAPI support, so that's why we focused on SCORM first. But if people do come to us and have that feature request, we will consider adding it in the future. Matthew asked an interesting question. If you were starting from scratch today, would you build the knowledge foundation first or the AI layer first? And I think I would, and then I see the follow-up question also. I think what I would do is I would focus on the business problem first. And so one of the things I've said for 15, 17 years is you can't manage all the knowledge in your firm. And so what you want to do is you want to figure out which knowledge is needed to unlock your business strategy, your core challenges, big opportunities that are in front of you, relieve the most pain for people that are looking for things, frequency times pain, right? It's like people that are looking for things and how hard it is when they can't find them, capture that, and then apply the different AI stack to that and get that solved, and then move on to the next most important knowledge problem and the next most important knowledge program. So I would iterate through that, just solving one problem at a time with the full stack. I wouldn't wait until I had all of our knowledge catalogs. Not possible. And I wouldn't start with AI because what is it searching, right? So I think that's my best advice to you there. I see that Christopher asked, will the LMS transcript and analytics be updated to include more filters based on those already available in the employee directory? Not in this release. It's an idea that we are tracking. It's more complicated than it might sound to do that, but it's something that we want to understand if there's a great demand for, and then we will consider building that in the future. There's one more question. I think I already answered the Office 365 stuff enough that I think that document will be a jumping off point, Matthew. And then if you've got follow-ups, you can hit our team. And then Rodrigo asked, will there be an option to make certain courses on the intranet private, especially for content that contains confidential or sensitive information? Yes, this is actually in platform today. It was there in the very first version. So you have public courses and you have private courses. And that is both who can see the course and take the course, but then also those permissions apply to search, to agents, to MCP, et cetera. So very much we do have private courses today. Marco asked about private learning paths. That is not in the product today. It is a feature request we're tracking. It's super complicated. So we want to understand how important that actually ends up being before we commit to doing that. And then Gina asked, how soon will the update come out? There were 6 updates in this product roadmap. So it depends which of the 6 you're talking about, but I kind of talked, I don't know when exactly when that question came in. So I don't know which update you're looking for. So it depends, but most of them are coming out this year. Oh, SCORM's coming out the end of next week. So there you go. Great. So I don't think I see any more questions in the Q&A. So I think that's it. Thanks everyone for your questions. If you've got follow-up ideas or questions or things that we didn't get to, you can email us at support@knowledge-architecture and we'll get that over to you. And then we also will be sending the recording of this webinar out early next week. So I think that's everything. Hope you all are doing well and thanks for paying attention.